G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Off Ukraine War Update for the 29th of June 2026. Now, while the summer, spring, any offensive really for the last year has been underwhelming, no matter who launched it, by the way, there's been no major offensive, but overall the Russian offensive continues to advance at a slow is an understatement, but it's a slow rate. Now, this is the slowest year of the Ukraine war, but it is now heating up. Europeans have put more factories to work making thousands of drones, and they trickle in, most of which get shot down. Russia's, for now, electronic warfare is adequate compared to the Chinese. And we're now seeing that those systems are definitely translating to foreign exports, particularly to Iran. We are seeing drone interceptors and other equipment making their way to other countries where we could see their effectiveness, because Ukraine is not transparent. But if Russian equipment is devastating in Iran, it's got to be devastating against Ukraine. It's Russian equipment. It's the same equipment. But Ukraine, of course, is about as transparent as mud. Now, I have a theory, of course, that Russia and China started with Ukraine as a flex, I suppose, to push back against Europe. And when that didn't go their way, they poured equipment into Cambodia and North Korea and Iran. Cambodia did not go well for them. Still has not gone well for them. Authorities, particularly in Thailand, are arresting lots of Chinese. They have destroyed a lot of equipment. So they turned to Pakistan, which did not go well either. And Pakistan turned around and did not want to, and was caught between Chinese favoritism or their obligations to the Islamic world, particularly their agreements with Saudi Arabia. So for now, they're back on the table and out of the, not completely, but for now, China can't exert any pressure on Pakistan. China's been using the fact that a lot of these countries, particularly Ukraine, haven't paid their bills. So it's a matter of revenge for them to bolster Russia. Now, with Iran, we know they are trying to undermine President Trump to force America to back off from Taiwan. And it ain't happening. Now, have they linked peace in Iran to peace in Ukraine? Not directly. Nor Taiwan directly yet. But the Iranians are putting out statements through RT and other Russian media, making threats, which, of course, will overshadow the situation in Ukraine. But the real hissy fit is coming from Europe. You have also, and of course, the Democrat Party is talking about, well, we would have had victory in Ukraine by now. Well, Joe, you had time. You had your time. You had your chance. And you blew it. Now, Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer are paying the political price. Others should too. for the debacle. Because they always push for more. Every time there's a deal on the table, they both Ukraine and Europe push for more. Europe wouldn't get involved in Iran unless they got something for it. Yet it was their ships that America was bailing out to show that they would stand up for Europe. And now, not all European nations refused overflight, but it was enough and significant. Socialist Europe is a pest. It produced the Ukraine war. It produced the Iran war. Iran, so used to special treatment, so used to governments rolling over and playing the blackmail and silently taking their shit behind the scenes. No, Trump said, no, you're not going to bully us. Now, Oman was trying to be pragmatic. Buy time. Get a deal sort of working while they work on a pipeline to bypass the strait, putting thousands of ships out of work. Abso-freaking-lutely. Do it. It's why Biden doesn't want the pipelines. It was Biden. Okay, if Biden hadn't cut out all these pipelines and there'd be more of them, a lot of these ships would be out of work and couldn't be held blackmail. Supply lines wouldn't be so dependent and overpriced. The Democrats don't believe in economic efficiency. Socialists are not economic efficient. They're pathetic people pleasers. Now, the extent of which China is behind is somewhere between 10 and 30 years behind Russia. And Russia knows this, and a lot of the world knows this. China isn't just stealing from you. They're stealing from everyone, even their friends and neighbours. BRICS is not a partnership of equals. It's a den of vipers all trying to backstab each other, trying to outdo each other. India is trying to lever Russia against China, but right now Russia's dependent on several key resources from China because Russia doesn't have the processing or the manpower. But they might soon. There's a lot of Chinese workers in Russia, and yes, there are strikes, but that's by Chinese companies in Russia not paying Chinese workers. Soon, I believe, I don't know which is what the governor's true intentions are, but there is talk of one of the Russian governors stepping in and taking over the factory using the... Now, there are laws on the books. You owe debts, they can seize your property. Every country has foreclosure laws and bankruptcy laws. The problem is these companies aren't bankrupt. In fact, they're worth billions of dollars. They're just not paying their bills. And they hide through layers of shelf companies. And some of these shelf companies are in Ukraine. There's a lot of Chinese companies registered in Ukraine as a Trojan. And I think China actually wants and pushing for a settlement because they have all these companies in Ukraine, which they're going to spring up, flood a few million Chinese into Ukraine to rebuild the economy, of course, and start flooding Europe with crap. Zelensky's not your friend. If you haven't figured that out, I pity the fool. that you are, because you just cannot see the fact from the propaganda. Never look at what people say and never listen to what they do. Always. It's not about what people say, it's about what they build. And China does not build anything valuable. They're now very angry in some places that they rejected the Russian offer to rebuild the Chinese railway, because now it's going to cost them around $3 trillion to rebuild just the Shanghai line. One of the reasons why goods are not flowing as fast from China into Russia is that so much of the Chinese rail line is damaged. It's old or outdated or poorly constructed. And some of their rail lines, though marked as complete, are in fact not complete. And the trains run up to the border, get loaded, and they're like 10, 20 miles short, and have to transfer everything by truck because they didn't build the standard gauge all the way through, and they won't allow the Russian trains into China. They won't extend the line. So the trains go into the warehouse on the border and have to be loaded from trucks because China didn't build their lines all the way through. They're incomplete in many places as well, not just at the border. Now, this kind of sabotage, and we can't blame Putin or Xi, there's a long bureaucratic, is a product of the Russian mindset. And same in China. Get something done as quick to look bigger and better or cheaper than the West. Predominantly cheaper. Such mindset is found in Ukraine as well. And this closed society has produced a lot of problems in the last year for themselves. The one thing Ukraine won't admit to is how many civilians die from secondary fallout from the war. Food shortages, violence, crime. When they say 2 die in an explosion in an entire apartment building, is that because the majority of the population doesn't exist? It's long gone? Or they're lying? We know in China there's a thing called the rule of 3, and I think you find this mindset across Eastern Europe in parts, particularly Ukraine. If they say 3 died, it was 30. If they say 30, it was 300. Usually they say 3, right? Ukraine's decided, now we're gonna be clever. We're gonna say only 2 died. So that's 20. If they say the Russians only advanced 2 kilometers, we know it was bigger, more than that. Ukraine never tells you what cities have fallen, but you can look them up whenever the Russians claim. We know the Russians have lost some of the cities they claim, but they've taken them back. They don't always hold everything they claim. Right? They'll move into, sometimes when they claim they've moved into a settlement, they've Vulture. They don't control it all. Same with Shishmovia and others. They don't always claim the settlements they've taken as well, which is weird. But they are opening another front in Sumy, And that has Zelensky panicking. If you are panicking, you are not winning. Doesn't matter what the situation is. For Zelensky to make a peace offer that's very advantageous to Putin, tells Putin all he needs to know is that he's pressed the right button. And do you think he's going to stop? Hell no, brother. You just do the rope-a-dope, and then the guy says, "Oh, let's call the fight. Let's scale the fight back." But Ali's going to say, "Hell no, brother. I'm not going to stop punching you in the face." No. Now, boxers. Now, it's only small gains here and there, and it's only another month before we might see gains in Kupiansk. Although we have seen sudden gains turn into long slogs here. They're really going slow here. Lyman's quickly becoming a bog. Pass to the front are frozen, waiting on Krosnikovia to fall before the commanders decide to move into position. Although they are striking out at Dushkovka, though Kromoskovska rarely hit for now. Other maps have more of this territory marked off than live map. But we have used this for such a long time. Bit of a reshaping here, but nothing spectacular. Filny hasn't fallen. Nothing really. Only, yeah. As you can see, the grind continues. And the situation of the war is, particularly, is that, Ukraine focuses on Crimea. Ukraine does not admit to the towns it loses, the blackouts, the civilian deaths, the secondary civilian deaths, which are worse than, because they're totally preventable. And you have a country economically beyond its means. It does not have the economy to wage the war. It's spending its entire GDP almost entirely on the war, totally dependent on foreign aid. That's losing. That's lost. You are a loser. And if you spend half your days trying to come up with dead heroes for some monuments to put up in town square, yeah, you totally lost the plot. You're trying to rewrite history. Talking about historical justice and other nonsense. That's it's typical dictatorship stuff, always the fluff. This channel is sponsored by you. One way to sponsor the channel is to buy my merch. Empire Valves, that's one word, empirevalves.myshopify.com. Your one-stop shop for enchanting treasures based on my writing. Please and thank you. There's the glorious Empress. See you there. Thank you for your purchase. I appreciate each and every one of you. Well, these are beautiful. Explosions reported in Kiev. Look at the size of the missile, and that allegedly did nothing to that building, which I find impossible. There's no way. That just This is just propaganda. There's just so much propaganda. But they claim a non-residential building was hit, not specified what it was, and they claim only 2 civilian deaths, which is, well, it's not a civilian building, was it? Or a residence. Now, this originally had no photo, or it was commander of Ukraine's 154th Separate Mechanized Brigade, from his Facebook profile, has been found dead. It is a law enforcement case, which means he was murdered. And they give him the usual glowing report and no additional details. I don't tell you the violence in Ukraine is bad and is getting worse, and would eventually turn to people popping caps into officers for sending their men to needless deaths. Needless deaths are the biggest gripe of soldiers. And in most wars, this is the biggest casualty amongst officers, particularly in World War One, by the way. The stuff they won't tell you about, which is why they limited ammunition and had Marine guards on the trenches. If men didn't go over the wall when told, they would be cut off from supply. And remember, the artillery isn't with the men, it's behind you. Now, Russian troops have moved and have claimed Pisantsy and Novoselovka. Now, I looked up Pisantsy. It's marked off. Novoselovka is contested. Now, Pisantsy is interesting. It's related to a unique art form unique to Ukraine and Ukrainian culture, where it means to write, and it's a decoration on Easter eggs. The town has a tradition of painting Easter eggs by writing on them with they write the patterns onto it. They don't paint the eggs. They use ink pens. Now, it's a slight variation of, but I just thought it was interesting that to actually show that there is a human side to this war. Now, most of the civilians of these towns are long gone, but it is noted that you see Kiev has struck Russian and civilian infrastructure, and it is often mentioned in Russian news. But right now, Moscow will not halt its advance to negotiate on Ukraine's terms. Ukraine has said that they will negotiate if Russia stops attacking Ukrainian infrastructure. Notice they never say they will stop attacking Russian infrastructure. They want to force Russia to suspend, at least for a short time, the advance of its troops and agree to limit the war to this front. No talk of stopping tax on Crimea, by the way, or Russian infrastructure. Only please stop attacking our power stations. Yeah, people are dying because the power is cut. People are suffering because the power is cut. But people are also suffering because Ukraine attacks them. But Ukraine won't stop doing that. So Russia's told them where to shove that um, suggestion, where the sun don't shine. Their main objective is the complete liberation of Donbass. They are fighting against Ukrainian war crimes, have even used Russian military uniforms to attempt to infiltrate. That's immediate execution, by the way. If you're caught in an enemy uniform, you can be executed. Now, Russia's energy sector is still within its estimated safety margin. The Russian economy is still growing, and this is the World Bank, not Russia. Russia's actually understated its growth compared to that of the World Bank. So it's somewhere between the two. No agreements were signed, no agreements were reached in Anchorage or previous talks. Russia expected US negotiators to visit, but are not until the Iran talks are over. So, like I said, they haven't exactly linked the Iran talks to peace, but they have sort of. Now, Putin doubts the European leaders who are interested in peace that they won't negotiate. I wouldn't say the entire West, but definitely Ursula von der Leyen and Keir Starmer says we have to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia. We cannot accept anything less than a total victory for Ukraine, said Keir Starmer. Of course he served the country he loved. And you ask Israel or Ukraine, the answer is yes. Both, if you don't get the implication. Now, saving the Kiev regime is not part of our plan. So Putin believes that Zelensky is facing catastrophic backlash. No, we won't. That Russia's Russia's successful attacks on Ukrainian energy have people behind the scenes worried about their businesses. Because Russia has destroyed a lot of businesses. Now, there are some businesses that are outside of Ukraine, which Gorminsky and others will have a soft landing. But that's not everyone. There are a lot of people in Ukraine who have lost their farms, their rental buildings, their hotels are empty, or turned into or confiscated by the state for barracks, or had their various other plants taken over by the state. The Ukrainian armed forces believe their current salvation is to limit the war to a narrower front. This would allow Ukraine to withdraw troops from Nikolaev, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv, and Sumy. So basically, I think in reality, confining military operations to Kherson, Zaporozhye, Donetsk, and Lugansk, I think it was actually freezing Kherson, Zaporozhye, and fighting over the last bit of Donetsk, to be honest. I think Putin's given Zelensky a little bit too much credit, or it's a negotiating point and he's just being brought in general. Now, don't forget, these gains are small and over time. Casualty alignment, I think it's more than 149, but those are probably the structures that are standing. But I think everyday Ukrainians are pouring in, just like, only a few hundred, just like Kupiansk and Khosrokovia, and the Russians are letting them. Why go to them when they come to us? It's their fuel, not ours, that's being used. The Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups have done damage to Russia. And yes, all but a few have been eliminated. Now, we don't know the fate of them all, but I think the way Putin operates, you may think you're safe, you may think you haven't been found out, you may think you made it back to Ukraine, and then your house blows up. Now, that's not saying that Putin's the only one who engages in this activity, by the way, but he's more, let's say, loud about it. But we've heard of gas explosions in Britain and America too. And people you've never heard of, or obscure politicians who slip and fall in the bathtub and rush to hospital and, oh no, they died of a stroke. Yeah. Now, Russia's energy infrastructure again has been targeted by drones throughout the conflict. They are within what they call the safety margin. That's the ability to rebuild, by the way, and still operate. And they emphasize that Russia is able to retaliate more powerful and hit more sensitive targets than what Ukraine can hit. But so far, again, you can look up Russian restraint for yourself if you want. And there's a lot of people from Sweden all the way through who have questioned Russian restraint. What is their real end goal? Are they trying to make a case that they would be better stalwarts of Ukraine than Ukrainians? Or they want some sort of moral victory where the rest of the world is hands looking at Russia. And you do have some, particularly in the UN, countries who have said that Russia's restraint is a model for modern warfare, acknowledging the fact that Russia can catastrophically ruin Ukraine, just like America could catastrophically ruin a very slowly dying Iran. I think I've said this to you all before. Cats don't beg. Okay? Ukraine is begging. They've lost their pride. They are begging for ceasefires in some areas, for Russia to back off of Sumy and other areas, to back off its deep strikes into Ukraine, while offering nothing in reality. It may look like, oh yeah, you can have the territory in Kherson and Zaporozhye, but that's only temporary in the Ukraine's eyes. Remember, they say the temporary occupation all the time, especially if you read Kiev Independent. Often enough, you see the word temporary more than the colour black. Now, explosions and fires have been reported. 300 square meters. That's a very big. A garage unit. That's probably a repair depot. Probably civilian vehicles that they use for transporting ammunition. Most of the ammunition and supplies do move across Ukraine in smaller vehicles in large numbers every day, hidden amongst the traffic. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of cars every day cross Ukraine carrying supplies. Now, these are the only method of delivery. They have airdrops, do have trucks and other, but they are not relying on a single delivery. They are moving around all the time. Now, losing 3 MiGs yesterday, although Ukraine says 2 and 1 ejected, it was a crash, I tell you. Either way, 3 MiGs is a huge setback because they can't replace those. They take months to rebuild. And there's no sign that Poland or any of them have made a move so far to replace them. But we've heard of Sweden. Sweden's been promising now for close to 2 months, I think, since February, Gripen fighters. Now, these are old Gripens, not new Gripens. And there are only 7 of them operational. The rest are factory pieces and old aircraft that are no longer flyable. They're what you call, salvage for parts. Same with the French Rafale. They're like from the first batch of Rafales, and these are all the unsold ones that France has. Now they did sell a lot of the second and third batch, particularly the third batch after India wrapped up. Pretty much wrapped up Pakistan within 3 days. Now, can Ukraine do the same thing? Well, remember, India's been training for years on these aircraft. Now, we do know that the French are training Ukrainians right now. So I think it's a matter of graduation. It's the same with the Gripens. It's a matter of graduation. Now, we know there's going to be more F-16s, but if and when, again, I think that depends on graduation in Belgium. Although I think they are also training on aircraft in Poland, but I think those are mostly older aircraft, like the Su-27 and Su-25s. But overall, Eastern Europe is reporting down on aircraft stock, which means definitely they're losing more aircraft, not to shooting down, but age. Remember, most of the equipment going to Ukraine is old and wearing out faster. Now, the T-82, which is actually the Polish T-72, or Ukraine is claiming it's the Ukrainian T-72, but it is made in Poland by the Polish and Germans. Now, this tank is allegedly getting a Leopard 1 turret upgrade. The first upgrades have been delivered, 5. Now, the next batch of T-82s will be redesignated T-84, and they'll be known as the Ukrainian T-84, but they are made in partnership, again, with Poland and Germany, and they have Leopard armour, not the Soviet armour. Poland is scaling back a lot of its Soviet-era production and are redesigning the Su-27, and I forget what the new designation is, but it's going to be a Polish aircraft with Czech and Romanian and perhaps Hungarian, as well as German and French parts. Oh, here's an interesting thing. The Y-130 trainer that they use in Eastern Europe, made in Czechoslovakia, is actually made predominantly using Western parts already, particularly from Austria. So there's already a lot of integration and replacement. But what we haven't seen is what's happening with the replacement for the Iris and the S-300s. Now, Ukraine seems to be using them up, and then the launches go to be recycled. So we haven't seen the new air system yet, but for now, is it American British or British American Hawks air defences are being pulled in, as well as Patriots. So we should see what the new air defense system is soon. But a lot of Ukrainian air defenses now are down to drone interceptors. But we'll see. we will see, because there's so often misinformation, deliberate withholding of information. But I think the Iris T is on its way out as a infant system. Uh, yeah, yeah, infrared imaging system. Basically, it is basically a ground launch sidewinder. It is similar. Uh, the cost per missile, technical differences, yeah. It's used for fast moving and miniature targets. Yeah, air defense superiority. It is being produced Saab, yeah, but it's been made in Germany for some reason for these systems they're sending to Ukraine. So they all got their hands in each other's pockets right now in Europe. That's so that no country can leave. Yeah, it's a German-made program. It's basically replaced the AIM-9. They call it the AIM-2000, but really it's not as good as the AIM. Most of the AIMs are 120s. They're not using the 2000 or the 200 or the 260. They're all outdated, except for the American 260A. That's a modern update last year. Even the AIM-9X. They're using up stockpiles, is what they're getting at here. But they use a whole. They basically use what would normally be air launched. Yeah, dial defense, production of each missiles. Yeah, production increase. It's believed that most of the missiles going to this is why it's Ukraine mostly been air launched, and it can be launched from Saab as well as F-16s, as well as ground launch systems. And we have seen ground launch systems as well in appearing in Ukraine, various different ground launch systems. But the fact that they're using trucks is suggesting that they're not meaning their production. We have heard from many, where are the Iris Ts? And what is their replacement? How far away they are from replacement? Yeah. Uh, well, NASAMS is American. UK's Land Scepter. Yeah. 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 European Sky Shield. Did I not tell you? How often have I told you? Zelensky and Captain Sky Shield, okay? European Sky Shield. They don't want Donald Trump's program. They want their own program, and they want the technology off America under the guise of cooperation. But the European Sky Shield, European program, funded by Europe, aka NATO, in other words, half funded by America. Yeah. So you can see why there's a lot of problems in Europe right now, because Trump won't play their stupid games. They're always trying to get you to think that everything's warm and fuzzy as long as the American taxpayer gets nothing. You will learn nothing and you will like it. You will fund. Now, the Europeans cut their own throats by getting rid of air conditioners. As you can see, More people are dying in Europe now from heat stroke than in the Ukraine war. They are cutting their own throat, blaming climate change. Well, I'll tell you something. According to historians, the world was 4 degrees hotter back when Rome invaded Britain. They were growing grapes in London. See, sissies are so used to comfort and they can't alter their lifestyles because they're just so greedy to suit the conditions. Thank you for watching. The state of the Ukraine war is a big pile of doo-doo. So please like, share, subscribe. Please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. I appreciate each and every one of you. All my links are in the link tree, which you can find in the description or in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen right now. Please and thank you. See you in the next video. Bye for now.